You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. We are talking to Rabbi Shmuley Boteach. He's known as America's Rabbi. He's an Orthodox rabbi in America, speaks all the time on radio, on TV, and he's a fabulous author. Rabbi Shmuley, pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
You spend a huge amount of time teaching the world about the importance of family. Oftentimes I see in my business as a financial advisor that families are pulled apart by money problems, and especially we're seeing this more after the recent world financial crisis. How can husbands and wives bridge the gaps that are caused by money problems?
Well, statistically, money issues, financial disputes account for about, a rate as the third leading cause of divorce. Some people even rate it higher. So we're always wondering how we can bring people together on financial issues rather than having them tear it apart. And some of the major issues are if one spouse spends too much money, or right now during a recession, if one spouse is not earning enough money. Because when you're not earning enough money, not only is there financial pressure to pay your bills, but it erodes the confidence of the person who's unemployed, of the person who's been demoted. Usually this is a man. A man's greatest fear is the fear of failure. When you feel like a failure, it destroys your confidence. That affects all kinds of other issues in the marriage, even attraction between husband and wife. Women are attracted to confident men. Women are attracted to men who believe in themselves. But when a man comes home with his tail between his legs, feeling defeated, his wife loves him, but he takes it as pity. So the first thing is you need a healthy financial ethic, a healthy understanding of finance. We do not live in order to work. We work in order to live. Money is a means to an end, and a couple have to always understand what those ends are. For example, are you working in order to buy yourself more material possessions to make you happy, which just shows that you have a void at your center? Or are you working to fly your kids home from college for Thanksgiving, for Shabbos, for family celebrations? It may be expensive, but that's why you're working. Rabbi Abram Joshua Heschel said very beautifully that one of the major differences between Judaism and other religions of the world is that they value space and we value time. Christianity has built these soaring cathedrals all over the world. Jews, our cathedral is Shabbos. We value precious moments, time shared together. I think if a couple are able to agree on a money ethic, like why are we working and what do we do with our money, that could actually bring them closer instead of having them torn apart.
Let me touch on this issue of Shabbat, because for many hardworking parents, it's frankly often impossible to spend enough time with their spouses and their children. So Shabbos, of course, is a great break, but it only comes once a week. How would you suggest families deal with Shabbat only coming once a week?
You mean in terms of
building a family dynamic together, right? In other words...
The purpose of Shabbos is to extrapolate beyond Shabbos and to have a Shabbos experience even during the week. For example, I tell families that their daily dinner table is Shabbos. You shouldn't be taking the phone on a Wednesday night when you sit down from 6:30 to 8 to have dinner, or 6:30 to 7:30. You should not be texting. You should not be discussing mundane subjects. You know, you're not supposed to be sitting there talking about, the latest sexual scandal in the news at the dinner table. You're supposed to be asking your kids, tell us about your day at school. Which teachers do you like? What did you learn? You can discuss important events that are current, but that are important. So Shabbos is the mother of all sanctity and tranquility. But it has tributaries, and all the time we spend together is one of those tributaries.
Very nice. Another issue that people suffer from, as you had mentioned, is sort of the money ethic, but simply a bad budget discipline often seems more like a psychological problem than simply bad organization. Some people spend money just like other people eat chocolate, right? It's a release. It makes them feel better. How do you tell people that they got to stop doing that?
Well, material addiction comes from a spiritual emptiness. And often the spiritual and material are inversely proportional, such that the more you experience one of the former, the less you experience of the other. So, here in the United States, for example, there's just a glut of materialism that is snuffing out the soul of the nation. You have teenagers who live for technology and fall in love with their technology. Clothing and fashion becomes way too important. Mm-hmm. I've seen very often that in empty marriages, let's say take a proverbial Wall Street marriage. Wall Street marriages, obviously, but take a hedge fund manager who works every night till 10 o'clock at night, mm-hmm. flies around the world, his wife's raising the kids. That emptiness she feels, that romantic emptiness, is often compensated for through material indulgence. And they have an unspoken agreement. He makes the money, she spends the money, and everybody's happy. Mm-hmm. Except for the fact that nobody's happy, which is why he needs to work so hard to feel good about himself making money, and she needs to shop so hard to feel good about herself by filling the cavernous hole in her soul with possessions that will never satisfy her. That's why we see that materialism is addictive. You can never have enough.
I got you. We are talking with America's rabbi, Rabbi Shmuley Boteach. He's an Orthodox rabbi. He speaks on the radio, TV. He's a prolific author, written many, many fabulous books, all of which you should look up. And he's talking to us about money and relationships and families. In the Jewish world, a lot of times people and parents feel responsible that they need to pay for their children's weddings and apartments, and the children feel that they deserve this. I've found as a financial planner that this often destroys the financial security of the parents. Are parents responsible to actually pay for this for their kids?
No. Parents are responsible to assist their children in getting on their feet. I wouldn't even say responsible, and that's not a responsibility. The real responsibility is giving your children a very good education so that they can earn a living. Kids are supposed to be self-sufficient and independent. I think it's helpful to kids if their parents give them a little bit of money in order to get started. But when parents pay for everything, I think that's a very big mistake. I think it teaches indulgence. It does not promote a healthy work ethic. Look, the rule of thumb when it comes to success is that necessity is the mother of invention. Mm-hmm. It's what we need to do that we end up doing. People are very creative. If you need to feed your family, you will, God willing, find a way. You'll work your guts out. You won't rest until you do. And you might just find latent talents that have been so underdeveloped in the process. But if someone just gives it to you, then you have no incentive to develop those potential, to develop that potential, to develop those talents, and they will remain dormant forever.
Mm-hmm. What about in the circles? I do run into this from time to time as when parents ask me, they say, listen, if I don't put up enough money, my kid's not going to get a good shidduch, not going to get a good match. I don't know what to say about that, because obviously I would want my kids to get a good match too. I just don't travel in those circles.
How could it be that a child gets a good match with someone who is so materialistic that they'll only marry someone with money, or that where the relationship becomes about money? How is that a good match? That sounds to me like a terrible match. That sounds to me like about the most shallow thing in marriage that I have ever heard.
I'm not the first person saying it to you, though, am I?
No, of course not. But for religious Jews especially, to indulge in that kind of garbage is humiliating, embarrassing, and just disgusting.
Well, God, I hope I can find those words to say to clients. We're talking to Rabbi Shmuley Boteach. The difference between 10% of your income going to charity and 20% is a huge difference. People say, Jews are supposed to give 10 to 20. Why are we given that choice? Should people really strive, really strive, to give the higher amount at 20%, or is 10% just as good? From a halachic standpoint, let's start with that.
You give 10% because the Torah tells us to, and you're supposed to be charitable and philanthropic. 20% is if you could afford it. Look, I know people give a lot more than 20%. I know that the Gemara says you're not supposed to give more than a chomesh, a fifth, but Rabbi Shner Zalman of Liadi, the founder of Chabad, says in Tanya That's only true if you're a righteous person who has no wrongdoing. But if you've made mistakes in life, you give money also to for atonement. So if a guy is worth $30 billion, look at a guy like Warren Buffett, and you got to take your hat off to him. The guy gave away, he was worth at the time, I think, $33 billion, gave away about whatever it was, $25 billion. That's a lot more than a fifth, but he probably could survive on a good $8 billion. I can imagine he'd have to. I can imagine he'd have to scrounge around a little bit, but he might get by.
Interest rates are low, but
Well, and now Buffett and Bill Gates have started this club of people giving away 50% of what they have. That's 50%.
So is it reasonable for when a husband and wife talk about money that one of their goals should be to be, assuming their kids are going to eat and they've got a roof over their head, that one of their goals should be 20% plus?
It depends on the family, but sure. I have a friend who gives away a third of everything he makes. And I think God blesses him for it. He becomes wealthier and wealthier.
Fabulous. But
it all depends on the people. You can't give charity irresponsibly and bankrupt your own family.
Right.
We're not fanatics. That's the point. We Jews, we're not fanatics. The Rambam, Maimonides, was adamant that the Jewish way is the golden middle path. It's the path of moderation. We don't mean passionless moderation. We mean the synthesis of extremes into a very healthy middle.
I hear. It sounds like good advice. Listen, Rabbi Shmuley Boteach, I've enjoyed talking to you. I know that you are very busy. You're teaching all over. I would like to just ask you the final question, which is, what do you suggest is the best way for people to follow the work that you're doing so they can tune into you regularly?
Thank you. Well, follow me on Twitter at Rabbi Shmuley. That's my handle, RABBISHMULEY. I also have a website, shmuley.com. I write a lot of columns during the week. I do quite a few broadcasts, and most of it is announced on Twitter and on Facebook, so friend me and follow. It's such a weird thing to tell people to follow you, but that's the Twitter parlance, so follow me. Acharai.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Thank you very much for having me, and God bless you and your show. Take care.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt show.